Hello. So this one is intensely personal, as of course all of our work is. And we've been talking about a letter. This may be the first, or maybe it's the 171st, I don't know, of many letters. But this one is going to be about a process. And so I'm going to show you some of my process in the most important relationship in my life right now, that with my husband. So it began with notes. So I split a piece of paper. How did I do that? Like this. And over here at the beginning, I put, this is where we met. And there's a reason I put this line across, so that every event that comes to me while I'm doing this graph, and I didn't spend a lot of time on this graph, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And that's what I would encourage you to do, because you can do this again and again and again, and different things will come to you when you do. So here's my, for instance, when there was an event that felt that I currently have only good feelings about, the line went up. If it was something that, well, only felt very bad, the line went down. If it was something that felt good and bad, the line went up and down according to the degree of those emotions felt. These emotions and these experiences are coming into my awareness now because apparently they still want attention. So when I did this graph, I put a few words so I'd know what each one was about. And because I can get very lost in my own stuff, I numbered them. So let me read a few of these for you. It began with, we met. And then there's a line that goes up and down. It says Valentine's breakup. Third line, our first son was born and John got on the fire department. I'm speaking to him when I'm writing these things. We built our house. My feelings were happy and overwhelmed. Here's a line that only goes down. Christmas, birthdays, Mother's Day, they brought so much hurt to me. Here's a line that has a little down, mostly up. Camping with the boys, amazing. Here is a line that goes far down, great fear because drinking escalated. Here's a line that only goes up. Good day, a good dad, teaching the boys, and so good to me. Here's a line that only went down, and you can see this one goes very far. Suicide or divorce. Here's a line that goes down a little bit, but mostly up. Counselor and sobriety for a few years. I'm trying to read my own writing as I do this. Here's a line that goes down and up. Bill, that's our eldest son, went to the Air Force. There was so much anxiety. Here's a line that only went up. We bought our lake house. Here's a line that goes down and up. Jeff is gay. That's our middle son. And this is the day our eldest son found out. How he could have been oblivious all those years, I have no idea. Here's a line that's only up. Bill's wedding. Here's a line that goes up, and it's the farthest line that goes down. Mike died. And I want to call your attention to this because the line does go down deeper than any other line. That's been the greatest hurt of my life. But it's not all down. There's also parts of that day, that event, that were very good. Here's a line that only goes down. Jeff stopped talking to me. Here's the line that went up. Retired and moved to the lake house. Here's a line that only goes down, not as far as the deepest one, but pretty darn close. The last drinking episode. Here is a line that only goes up. Support for my book. Here is a line that's up and down, but I don't see the line. Moved, and your parents need help. This one goes down a little bit, but mostly up. We helped Jeff to rehab 3 houses. Here's a line that's got some down, mostly up. We moved to Indiana. A little bit down, mostly up, interacting with the grandkids. And here's a line that's only up because I was going to do something and he went out and cleaned my car, top to bottom. So again, as I say, this is incredibly personal. These were impactful moments that came to me when I was writing this. So then I went through and I wrote more about it. And I did the graph, I put a few notes so I knew what it was about. But then I went back and I did more. For instance, the day we met is not on here. The first thing, and that's where I started numbering, not my first memory of him, but the first impactful event that I have listed here, which has up and down. And that is a Valentine's Day breakup. And I started with an apology to him. I'm so sorry I hurt you by breaking up with you. You were kind and caring. I responded out of fear. I apologize. Because I did break up with him. And I was scared to pieces about what love meant. These notes I have, as I noted them, they expand a little bit on what each of these graph pieces means. What did I feel? What is the emotional statement behind it? Do I owe him an apology? Am I willing to forgive him about something? Or is it an emotional statement all on its own? So I'll read just a few more so you'll get an idea. Number 2 I have on here is our firstborn son and got on the fire department. My husband had a career on the Milwaukee Fire Department and was a lieutenant when he retired. Number 2, you are a great dad. You're patient and gentle. You're working so hard to take care of us, and you do so well on the fire department. I'm proud of you. So number 3 on here is where we built our house. And if you can see this graph, which you probably can't, you can see that the line goes in equal distance up and down. So what I wrote down here was we built our first house, and you're the one who made it all possible. Okay, I'm trying to read my own writing. I was scared and I was excited. Mostly, I was very grateful. So I can go through all of these, but I think you get the idea. What I'm asking for is to make this short graph or make notes on a piece of paper about events that are coming to you when you sit down and do this. It doesn't need to take a lot of time. In fact, I encourage you to keep it short. Less than a half an hour, probably 10 or 15 minutes is enough. What events are coming to you right now? I only have 23 listed here, and that's probably more than enough for this event. When you make those graphs up and down, put a few words there so you'll remember what it's about. It's helpful to go on a timeline because that's the way our mind works from beginning to end. We can do this with a pet. We can do it with a friend. We can do it about a job. We can do it with a loved one. I'm sharing this one with you about John because he is the most important relationship in my life. And I think you get an idea of some of the impact. When you sit down to make these other notes, you don't have to do this. Some people don't. I liked it because it helped me expand on what those feelings were that I felt at that time. Now, we've been talking a lot about feelings, and this exercise is why. I just wasn't sure I was going to do it right away, but at this time, I knew it would come up. What are those feelings? not what we think about those feelings. There's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong. There is owning it, because that matters. After this portion, which again, don't give it a lot of time. Notice your feeling, write it down, write it down. When things come up, it's because they're still in our being, and it wants expressed. Is it something I need to tell you? Do I need to tell you how much I love and appreciate you? Then do it. Do I owe you an apology? Was I short? Was I less than thoughtful? Was I unkind? Go ahead and write it down, not in depth, but a little bit. Was there something you said or did or didn't say or do that hurt me? Make a note so that you can address it, because that's when we're going to think about forgiveness or letting it go. Remembering forgiveness is not ever justifying or condoning. And if the word forgiveness feels in any way like something you do not or cannot use, then let it go. Let it go. You might want to replace it with, I now release you. You release this feeling because I don't want to feel it anymore. I'm done with it. So then, when you are ready, I do not encourage you to do it all in the same day, but you can. We're only addressing the events that you graphed about. I've known this man 42 years. There are a lot more than 23 events in my life that impacted me with deep emotion. And I do lots of this stuff with him, about him, lots of writing and processing. I don't know if he does. I don't know how he manages to stay with me, but this is incredibly productive. And so then I write a letter. And in this letter, I address every one of the points that I have here. So I'm going to read you a little bit of my letter. Dear John, because that's how I want to begin this letter to him. If it's somebody that I have no attachment to, I might just start with their name. I might say, Sue, Ronnie, Frank. But this is someone that Dear John feels appropriate for me. That's how I'm going to begin the letter. And again, I'm starting with these very first things, this very first event, the Valentine's Day breakup. Dear John, I know that I hurt you deeply when I broke up with you on Valentine's Day. You were unafraid and declared your love. I was overwhelmed and so afraid of that feeling. Please forgive me. So the point here is I'm acknowledging what I felt at that time. And I'm acknowledging that what I did hurt him. And I'm asking him to forgive me. The next one, our first son was born and he got on the fire department. And so the next thing that I wrote in my letter is, I'm so sorry for the times I was impatient, unkind, and distant. When we talked about drinking, I know that I hurt you so much. I was afraid and overwhelmed. I always worried a lot that day would come, and I often felt so alone. Please forgive me and know that I forgive you. Each one of these events is not always addressed in here. I see that when I'm writing it, isn't it? Okay, so I've written this a while ago and I'm having a hard time. Maybe I'll just read the letter to you. When I pushed you to go into the hospital after you told me to decide if you would divorce, if I wanted a divorce, or you should suicide, I was absolutely terrified. Do you see that that's one of the lines here? And apparently I didn't feel the need to write about all the ones in between. I was absolutely terrified for you, for me, for our boys. I believe you felt betrayed, and I'm so sorry for that. I also felt betrayed, and frankly, so very alone. When you didn't interact with me for many weeks after, it hurt me so much. I felt as though I didn't matter anymore. I forgive you. So there's more to this. When my husband asked me whether he should kill himself or I wanted a divorce, it was the most terrifying day of my life up until that point. Actually, it's still the most terrifying day of my life. I'd been gone for half an hour. And when I came home, he was incredibly drunk. That's not something that typically happened. In fact, it's the only time I can remember being gone and he was home with our kids, and that happened. And that's what he told me. And here I was with our kids. He's bigger than me. I didn't know how to get him somewhere. He was seeing a counselor at the time, and I called the counselor and she said he needs to get to this hospital now. I couldn't convince him to get in the car. And so I called my dad, who came over. My dad's a great big guy. And he sort of maneuvered John into the car, and he stayed with our kids while I took him to a hospital for rehab. Mostly I just needed him to be somewhere safe. On the drive, he tried to get out of the car a number of times, but he couldn't manage to work the lock. Can you feel the terror? I don't have another word. When we got there, he did not want to be signed in. He couldn't sign someone in against their will. He had to agree to it. He finally did agree. And he went in, I believe it was for a week. During that week, he wouldn't take my calls. I think he called once or twice, but he was angry and he was hurt, and so was I. When he was released, he came home, and he didn't have anything to do with me. He would hardly talk to me. There was no touching. There was no affectionate. We're a very affectionate couple. 4 months. There was so much fear. There was so much distrust. There was so much betrayal. And that's why I'm going to read this again to you. When I pushed you to go into the hospital, after you told me to decide if you would divorce, or if we would divorce, or if you should suicide, I was terrified. For you, for me, for our boys. I believe you felt betrayed, and I'm so sorry for that. And here's the truth. I do believe that he felt betrayed, that I would do that to him. And I'm sure that's how he felt. He perceived it. I want this to be emotion. Emotion. I also felt betrayed. And frankly, so very alone. I had never felt more alone in my life. When you didn't interact with me for those many weeks after, it hurt me so much. I felt as though I didn't matter anymore. I forgive you. For each one of these things, if I owe an apology, I want that to be addressed. If I want to release those feelings, I want to offer the forgiveness. Now, I wrote this stuff quite some time ago, but I can read this dry-eyed. There's the smallest bit of emotion in the back there anymore, but mostly it's gratitude. So okay, here's another one. We moved to Indiana. If I look on my chart, you can see it's mostly up and there's a little down. And I address that here too. I pushed you to make this move from Wisconsin to Indiana. I know it was immensely hard for you, and yet I pushed. You were content, and I pushed you into a stage of anxiety and worry about the unknown. I'm owning my stuff here because I did push. I'm so sorry about all of that. Please forgive me. At the same time, you showed me how much you loved me by agreeing to the move. And I agree, I appreciate that more than I can ever say. This is about acknowledging with honesty and healing. There are so many events in our lives. We've got 42 years together. There's a lot more. This letter that I wrote, and this was very recent because we've only been here 5 months, was about processing the events that were coming up the day I sat down to write this. Again, you can write this about any relationship. It occurred to me as I'm even talking to you that I want to do some of this work about someone I was very connected to in volunteer work. There's wounds there. There are feelings there. But not just wounds. There's also deep caring and gratitude. And I find that I want to express that. So when I do that, I'm going to make a graph. The ups and the downs. I'm going to make notes. Then I'm going to put on paper a few more notes to elaborate it. And then I'm going to write a letter. That letter is something I will do in less than an hour. I encourage only a few pages and put in there for each event that I feel needs to be addressed. If I've written it down, I probably want to address it. Do I owe this person an apology? Whether they think I do or not, whether the logical mind feels like it does or not, what do I feel? If I feel like an apology is something I want to offer, I'm going to write it in. If there's forgiveness or letting go that I want to process, I'm going to say, I forgive or I let go of this now because I'm done with it. Whatever I need to do. And the emotional part is really important. The emotional part is very important. So when I finish up my letter, this one was 3 pages. I'll read you the last few paragraphs. This shows you how I wrapped up this letter to the most important relationship in my life. Constantly, you've been my steadfast companion. And when Mike died, we were both so broken and scared. And you took loving care of all of us. Thank you for always doing your best and for betting on me, for letting me see your pain and fear at the same time. Your love and honesty is a gift. So many times we came close to parting. I'm grateful for the steadfastness and the devotion that has kept us working together, especially when it was so very hard so often. Please know that the apologies I offer in this letter are full, solid, and sincere. And please trust that the forgiveness I offer comes very easily, that the trust between us continues to grow. I now make the very clear choice to let go of the pain and the hurt and to once again build upon the appreciation and the love. And I do love you, Sandy. Something that can be very important is to end with this with something similar, not the whole page, but I make this clear choice to let go of the pain, to no longer feel this. And so I release you. I forgive you. Find the words that are right for you. Some people end this letter with a goodbye. That's not right for me. It might be in some of the relationships, like the one I was telling you I think I'm going to work on in the next few days with Ronnie, because I don't expect to ever see or hear from her again. I probably will end with a heartfelt goodbye, and that feels right even as I think about it. This letter could not end with goodbye for me. It can for others. When I work with some people, they absolutely end their letters in goodbye, and that's okay too. because it can be very much like ending a phone call or a chat. When someone leaves the house, we often say goodbye. This is personal. It's your journey. Let me know if this makes sense to you. And again, I want you to know how much I appreciate your trust and confidentiality, because this is the most important relationship in my life. It's one I value, and it's not easy for any of us. These relationships that have brought deep wounding have brought that wounding because they mean something to us. Whether they have lived up to what we expected or not, or something different, these wounds deserve tending. And I hope that this makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. We'll walk through it, and we can go through this as slowly as is right for you. It can be step by step. We can talk an awful lot more before you write your first letter or make your first graph or make your notes, whatever works right for you. If you decide to take this on this week, I encourage you to be very real with yourself, but not to spend a long time on any one of these exercises. Okay? I'll see you soon. Namaste.